August 12th, 30 BCE, Alexandria, Egypt. A 39-year-old woman sits alone in her tomb, surrounded by golden treasures and the weight of 3,000 years of Egyptian civilization. Outside, Roman soldiers are coming. The greatest empire the world has ever seen wants to parade her through the streets of Rome in chains, a trophy, a spectacle, a warning to anyone who dares challenge Roman power. She has two choices: submit to humiliation or choose her own ending. According to legend, she reaches for a basket of figs. Hidden inside, an asp, the symbol of divine Egyptian royalty. One bite. And with that single act, Cleopatra VII Philopator, the last pharaoh of Egypt, ensures that history will remember her not as a prisoner, but as a queen who died on her own terms. But here's what they don't teach you in school. Cleopatra was charismatic and intelligent, and she used both qualities to further Egypt's political aims. She wasn't just a seductress who enchanted powerful men. She was a political mastermind who spoke 9 languages, commanded armies, ruled the richest kingdom in the Mediterranean, and came within inches of fundamentally reshaping the Roman Empire itself. For 20 years, this brilliant strategist played the most dangerous game in history, and she almost won. This is the real story of Cleopatra, not the Hollywood fantasy, not the Roman propaganda, the truth about how one woman stood against the tide of empire, and why 2,000 years later we're still talking about her. Subscribe now, because what you're about to discover will completely transform everything you thought you knew about power, politics, and one of history's most misunderstood figures. The Ptolemaic Dynasty. To understand Cleopatra, we need to go back to 323 BCE, the year Alexander the Great died at age 32, leaving behind an empire that stretched from Greece to India. His generals tore that empire apart, carving it into kingdoms. One of these generals was Ptolemy I Soter, a fellow Macedonian who would found the Ptolemaic dynasty in ancient Egypt. For nearly 3 centuries, his descendants, all Greek Macedonians, not Egyptian, ruled from the magnificent city of Alexandria. By the time Cleopatra was born, that golden age was long over. A princess in a collapsing kingdom. Cleopatra VII was born in early 69 BC to the ruling Ptolemaic pharaoh Ptolemy XII and an uncertain mother. Her father, Ptolemy XII Auletes, literally the flute player because he preferred music to governance, was a disaster. He was a pro-Roman hedonist who was unpopular with the Greek inhabitants of Alexandria because they knew that he could not maintain his rule without foreign backing. Rome was circling like a predator, and Egypt's vast wealth, grain, gold, papyrus, made it irresistible prey. In 58 BCE, when Cleopatra was just 11 years old, her father was driven out of Egypt by his own people. He fled to Rome, begging for military help. The Romans made him pay, literally. They charged him enormous sums to restore him to power, plunging Egypt into crippling debt. What made Cleopatra different? While her siblings focused on palace intrigues and Macedonian traditions, young Cleopatra did something revolutionary. She learned the language of the native Egyptians, the first of her dynasty to have taken the time to do so. Think about that. Her family had ruled Egypt for 250 years, and not one of them had bothered to learn Egyptian. Cleopatra saw what her ancestors missed. You can't truly rule a people whose language you refuse to speak. The ancient author Plutarch reports Cleopatra was an irresistible conversation partner and fluent in 9 languages: Greek, Egyptian, Latin, Hebrew, Aramaic,
Ethiopian, Troglodyte, Median, and Parthian. This wasn't showing off, this was strategic brilliance. Every language was a diplomatic tool, a way to negotiate directly with allies and enemies without translators who might betray you. She studied philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, and rhetoric in Alexandria's famous library. And she watched her father's failures, learning exactly what not to do. 51 BCE. When her father, Ptolemy XII, died in 51 BCE, Cleopatra and her brother, Ptolemy XIII, co-ruled. She was 18, he was 10. And according to Egyptian tradition, they were married. Yes, brother-sister marriage was standard Ptolemaic practice, an attempt to keep power and bloodlines pure. The Ptolemies had practiced brother-sister marriages for several generations. For a while, Cleopatra was the dominant partner. The 18-year-old Cleopatra, older than her brother by about 8 years, became the dominant ruler. But Egypt was facing disaster, floods, famine, economic collapse. And her 10-year-old brother had advisors, powerful men who resented taking orders from a woman. By 50 BCE, everything fell apart. In 48 BCE, her chief advisor, Pothinus, along with another, Theodotus of Chios, and the general Achillas, overthrew her and placed Ptolemy XIII on the throne. Cleopatra was forced to flee for her life. Eventually, Cleopatra fled to Syria, where she assembled an army to defeat her rival. For a year, she raised a mercenary force, preparing to take back what was hers. In 48 BCE, she returned with her army and faced her brother's forces at Pelusium on Egypt's eastern border. Civil war was about to erupt. And then, into this chaos, walked Julius Caesar. Caesar wasn't in Egypt by choice. He was chasing his enemy, Pompey the Great, across the Mediterranean. Roman statesman Pompey fled to Egypt after losing the 48 BC Battle of Pharsalus against his rival Julius Caesar. Ptolemy XIII made a catastrophic miscalculation. Thinking Caesar would appreciate the gesture, he had Pompey murdered as he stepped ashore in Alexandria, presenting Caesar with his severed head. Caesar was furious. Pompey had been his enemy, yes, but also his former ally and son-in-law, and you don't just murder Roman generals without consequences. Caesar occupied Alexandria, claiming he was there to mediate the dispute between Cleopatra and Ptolemy, but really he saw an opportunity. Egypt owed Rome massive debts from Ptolemy XII's reign, and Caesar needed money to fund his return to power.
This is where legend takes over. According to ancient sources, seeking to avoid detection by her brother's forces, she famously had herself smuggled into Caesar's presence, rolled up in a carpet. Imagine the scene. Caesar, 52 years old, battle-hardened dictator of Rome, expecting another routine diplomatic meeting. A servant brings in a rolled carpet. It unfolds, and out steps Cleopatra, 21 years old, speaking perfect Latin, knowing exactly what she needs from him and exactly what she can offer in return. When Caesar met Cleopatra, he was 52 and had a wife back in Rome. But something about the 21-year-old Cleopatra caught his eye. Perhaps it was her charming banter and impressive mind. Was it attraction? Strategy? Both? Whatever happened in that room, Caesar made his decision. He would support Cleopatra's claim to the throne. Ptolemy XIII's forces weren't going to surrender peacefully. Ptolemy XIII's forces besieged Cleopatra and Caesar at the palace. For months, Caesar and Cleopatra were trapped in Alexandria's royal quarter, surrounded by hostile troops. Reinforcements finally arrived. Shortly after the siege was lifted by reinforcements, Ptolemy XIII died in the Battle of the Nile. The 10-year-old boy king drowned, weighed down by his ceremonial golden armor. Cleopatra had won.
Caesar declared Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy XIV joint rulers. She was back on the throne, but now with the backing of Rome's most powerful man. And she was pregnant with his child.
Cleopatra was pregnant with Caesar's son, something she wanted to advertise as the future of her dynasty. Cleopatra and Caesar's son was nicknamed Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. This wasn't just a baby, this was a living political alliance, the son of Egypt's queen and Rome's dictator, a potential heir to both thrones, a bridge between East and West. But there was a problem. Caesar was still married at the time to a Roman woman named Calpurnia, and Roman law did not recognize Caesarion because Roman men were not allowed to marry foreign women. Despite many Romans disapproving of the relationship, the Egyptian queen spent about 18 months living on Caesar's estate in Rome. Think about the audacity of that. The Queen of Egypt living openly as Caesar's mistress in the heart of the Republic. Caesar even commissioned a golden statue of Cleopatra dressed as the goddess Isis and placed it in the temple of Venus Genetrix, his family's patron goddess. The message was clear. Cleopatra wasn't just his mistress, she was his partner. Romans were horrified and fascinated in equal measure. They whispered that Caesar planned to move the capital to Alexandria, to declare himself king, to marry Cleopatra and legitimize Caesarion as his heir. The fiercely Republican Romans hated monarchy, and they definitely hated the idea of a foreign queen wielding power over their empire.
March 15th, 44 BCE, the Ides of March. This doomed romance ended abruptly in 44 BCE when Caesar was quite literally stabbed in the back and from all sides by his enemies in Rome. 23 knife wounds, killed by senators who feared he was becoming too powerful, too king-like. Cleopatra was still in Rome when it happened. Suddenly, she had no protector. Caesar's will named his grandnephew, Octavian, not Caesarion, as his heir. Egypt's future was in jeopardy. She fled back to Alexandria with her son, and shortly after her return, the sudden death of Ptolemy XIV, possibly murdered on Cleopatra's order, cleared the way for her to name 3-year-old Caesarion as co-regent. She was alone again, but not for long. 41 BCE. Rome's civil war had finally ended. Caesar's assassins were dead, and the Roman world was divided between 3 men: Octavian in the west, Lepidus in Africa, and Mark Antony in the east. Cleopatra and Mark Antony met in 41 BCE when Antony summoned her to Tarsus. Antony needed money for his military campaigns. Cleopatra needed Roman protection for Egypt. But Cleopatra wasn't going to arrive like a supplicant. She was going to make an entrance. She sailed up the Cydnus River on a barge with gilded stern, purple sails, and silver oars. Cleopatra arrived dramatically, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, and Antony, who identified with Dionysus, was captivated by her. The message? She wasn't just another client ruler begging for favors. She was a goddess, an equal.
Cleopatra provided Antony with the wealth and resources needed for his campaigns, while Antony helped secure her power and influence in Egypt. It was Caesar and Cleopatra all over again, but bigger. Antony wasn't just Caesar's general, he was one of the 3 rulers of the Roman world. And unlike Caesar, Antony was willing to publicly acknowledge his relationship with Cleopatra. They had 3 children together: Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene II, and Ptolemy Philadelphus. Antony gave them titles and territories: Cyprus, Crete, Cilicia, Phoenicia, parts of Syria. In 34 BCE, at the donations of Alexandria, Antony went even further. He declared Caesarion, not Octavian, as Caesar's true heir. He proclaimed Cleopatra Queen of Kings and her children rulers of vast territories. This wasn't just generosity. This was a direct challenge to Octavian's authority. Octavian used Antony's relationship with Cleopatra as a political weapon,
portraying Antony as having been bewitched by an Eastern queen, thus abandoning Roman values. Octavian's propaganda machine went into overdrive. Antony had gone native. He wore Egyptian clothes. He performed Egyptian ceremonies. He was planning to make Alexandria the capital of the Roman world and give Egypt's queen power over Roman citizens. None of this was entirely false, and that made it devastatingly effective. In 40 BCE, Antony was forced to return to Rome to deal with political unrest. As part of a political agreement, he married Octavian's sister, Octavia. This should have secured peace between the two men, but Antony returned to Cleopatra. He divorced Octavia, and in doing so, he made war inevitable.
September 2nd, 31 BCE. The coast of Greece. Cleopatra and Antony retreated to Egypt following their loss at the 31 BC Battle of Actium. Their combined fleet, over 200 ships, faced Octavian's navy, commanded by his general Agrippa. The battle was a disaster. Cleopatra's Egyptian squadron broke through the enemy lines and fled with 60 ships. Antony, seeing her leave, abandoned his own fleet and followed. Ancient historians condemned Cleopatra for retreating. They called it cowardice, but modern scholars suggest it might have been strategy, preserving the treasury and escaping to fight another day. Either way, the result was the same. Antony and Cleopatra's forces collapsed. Officers and allies defected to Octavian. The war was over. Octavian invaded Egypt and defeated their forces in July 30 BCE. After a long period of failed negotiations, Octavian's forces invaded Egypt early in 30 BC. Cleopatra tried to negotiate. She offered Octavian vast sums of money. She suggested her children could rule Egypt as Roman vassals. She offered everything. Octavian refused. He wanted Egypt as a Roman province, and he wanted Cleopatra as a trophy for his triumph in Rome. August 1st, 30 BCE. With Octavian's forces in Alexandria, Cleopatra withdrew to her tomb with her closest attendants and had a message sent to Antony that she had committed suicide. Antony, believing she was dead, stabbed himself with his sword, but the message was false. Cleopatra still lived. Octavian allowed him to be brought to the queen, where he died in her arms.
Imagine that moment. The man who had given up everything for her, dying in her arms because of a miscommunication. The last thing Antony saw was Cleopatra's face. Octavian demanded an audience with the queen, where the conditions of her defeat were made plain to her. She would be brought to Rome in chains. She would walk in Octavian's triumph. She would be humiliated before the Roman mob. This was unacceptable. After burying him, the 39-year-old Cleopatra took her own life, though how is uncertain. Some claim it was by means of an asp, the symbol of divine royalty. According to popular belief, Cleopatra killed herself by allowing an asp, Egyptian cobra, to bite her. But according to the Roman-era writers Strabo, Plutarch, and Cassius Dio, Cleopatra poisoned herself using either a toxic ointment or by introducing the poison with a sharp implement, such as a hairpin. We'll never know for certain how she died, but we know why. Committing suicide allowed her to avoid the humiliation of being paraded as a prisoner in a Roman triumph. Even in death, Cleopatra controlled her own narrative. Cleopatra's death marked the end of the Hellenistic period and Ptolemaic rule of Egypt, as well as the beginning of Roman Egypt, which became a province of the Roman Empire. 3,000 years of Egyptian independence over. Octavian had Caesarion hunted down and killed. The 17-year-old son of Caesar and Cleopatra was executed, erasing the last link between the two dynasties. Octavian declared, "Two Caesars are one too many." Cleopatra's other children with Antony were spared and raised in Rome by Antony's widow, Octavia, a final irony. Her daughter, Cleopatra Selene, eventually became Queen of Mauritania, ensuring that Cleopatra's bloodline continued.
Here's where history gets complicated. Almost everything we know about Cleopatra comes from Roman sources, and the Romans had every reason to lie. They portrayed her as a seductress who enchanted great men through sexual manipulation. They called her a witch, a drunk, a foreign temptress who corrupted noble Romans. Why? Because admitting the truth that she was a brilliant political strategist who nearly outmaneuvered Rome itself was too dangerous. Women weren't supposed to be that smart, that powerful, that threatening. So they reduced her to a stereotype, the femme fatale who destroyed men through desire. But look at the facts. She ruled Egypt for 21 years during one of the most turbulent periods in ancient history. She maintained Egyptian independence while Rome conquered everything around her. She commanded armies and navies. She negotiated treaties. She spoke 9 languages and turned diplomacy into an art form. Cleopatra was also ruthless, reportedly killing several family members in order to solidify her power. Yes, she was ruthless, but show me a ruler who survived that era without being ruthless. Her relationships with Caesar and Antony weren't just romances, they were political alliances that served Egypt's interests. She used every tool available to her, diplomacy, intelligence, charm, wealth, to protect her kingdom. And she almost succeeded. So why does Cleopatra still fascinate us 2,000 years later? Because she represents something timeless, the brilliant individual standing against impossible odds. She was born into a dying dynasty. She fought civil wars against her own family. She navigated Roman politics during the collapse of the Republic. She formed alliances with 2 of history's most powerful men. And when defeat was inevitable, she chose her own ending rather than submit to humiliation. Perhaps no historical figure has so inflamed passions and debates than Cleopatra VII. Was she a great leader or a manipulative seductress? A patriot defending Egypt or an opportunist seeking power? A victim of Roman propaganda or a genuine political genius? The answer is all of the above, because Cleopatra, like all real people, was complicated. She contained multitudes. What's certain is this: she was the last pharaoh of Egypt, the last ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the last person to stand between Egypt and Roman domination. And when she died, 3 millennia of Egyptian independence died with her. Her tomb has never been found, nor have archaeologists ever found the mausoleum where she, and likely Antony, died. Maybe it's buried beneath Alexandria's harbor. Maybe it was destroyed centuries ago. Maybe it's still out there, waiting to be discovered. But Cleopatra herself? She needs no tomb. Her legacy is written in history, in literature, in art, in every story about powerful women who refuse to be diminished by the men who fear them. From Plutarch to Shakespeare to Elizabeth Taylor, we keep returning to her story. We keep trying to understand who she really was beneath the myths and propaganda. And maybe that's her final triumph, that 2,000 years after her death, we're still talking about Cleopatra, still fascinated, still debating, still unable to look away.
The Queen of Kings, the last pharaoh, the woman who almost changed the world. If this documentary gave you a new perspective on Cleopatra, hit that subscribe button right now. Smash the like button, drop a comment telling me what surprised you most, and share this with anyone who loves real history, not Hollywood myths. Because the truth is always more fascinating than fiction, and Cleopatra's truth, it's absolutely extraordinary. Thanks for watching. See you in the next historical story.